I was days away from starting at my dream school, NYU. I'd spent years studying, sacrificing weekends, and chasing scholarships. My parents always said they were saving for my future. But 2 weeks before orientation, I found out the $120,000 college fund they'd promised me was gone, spent on my brother's lavish wedding. As he jetted off to Greece with his new wife, I was left with a shattered dream and a crushing betrayal. They thought I'd just accept it. But what they didn't know was that I had a plan, one they'd never forget. Ever since I was a little girl, I'd dreamed of going to NYU. Not just because of the prestige or the city or the endless opportunities, but because it was mine. My dream. While other kids played outside or binge-watched TV, I was in my room with flashcards, late-night study guides, and SAT prep books dog-eared from overuse. I wasn't naturally gifted. I worked for everything. My name is Emma Carter. I come from a small town in Pennsylvania where people don't usually make it out, at least not to New York City. But I had this fire inside me that refused to settle for less. NYU became my North Star, the thing I held on to every time I felt overwhelmed or exhausted. My parents always said they were proud of me, especially my mom. She'd gush to neighbors about my grades, my AP classes, my student council speeches. "That's my girl," she'd smile, eyes bright, and I believed her. My dad was more practical. Never one for big emotions, but he promised me year after year, "We've got a fund set aside for you. Don't worry about tuition. You focus on getting in. We'll take care of the rest." That rest was over $120,000, my college fund. It wasn't just a number. It was a symbol of everything I'd worked for, of the future I was building with my own hands. My parents weren't wealthy, but we were middle class. My dad worked in IT. My mom was a school secretary. They lived modestly, didn't splurge on big vacations or luxury items. So the idea that they'd been saving quietly for me, it felt like love in its purest form. Then there was Jake, my older brother. He was, well, Jake. Charming, popular, the golden child, the kind of guy who coasted through life with a grin and a lucky streak a mile wide. While I was home studying, Jake was partying his way through college, never quite graduating, always figuring it out. He'd bring girls home every Thanksgiving, each one, the one until they weren't. My parents still adored him, even when he dropped out, even when he bounced from job to job. They always found a way to excuse it. "He's just trying to find his passion," Mom would say. "He's got a good heart," Dad would add. When Jake got engaged to his latest girlfriend, Brittany, a social media influencer with 200K followers and a baby voice straight out of a reality show, my parents were over the moon. And suddenly everything was about the wedding. The colors, the venue, the catering, the destination honeymoon. I didn't think much of it at first. I was knee-deep in my NYU acceptance process. I'd gotten an early decision. Full tuition was $78,000 a year, and while I'd earned a partial scholarship, I still needed help. That's where the college fund came in. I had counted on it. Senior year flew by in a blur of essays, finals, and FAFSA forms. Every conversation with my parents ended the same. "We're proud of you, honey. Don't worry, we've got you." And I believed them until I didn't. The first red flag came when I overheard them whispering one night in the kitchen. I was getting water, and their voices were low, but not low enough. I heard my mom say, "Do you think Emma will understand? I mean, it's just timing." That night, I barely slept, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Then 2 weeks before orientation, I opened the mail. It was a billing notice from NYU, marked payment overdue. Confused, I went to my parents. That's when the truth came out. The fund was gone, every last cent. Used to cover Jake and Brittany's wedding, the custom floral arrangements, the lakeside venue, the designer dress, the 4-tier cake flown in from New York. It was a once-in-a-lifetime event, my mom said, her voice shaky. We didn't think you'd need the full amount right away. We thought maybe you could defer a year. A year, I repeated. My voice didn't even sound like mine. We'll figure something out, my dad added quickly. We just didn't want Jake to start his marriage in debt. Debt. I stood there stunned, speechless. I wasn't just betrayed, I was erased. All those nights I spent studying while Jake played video games. All the times I said no to parties, trips, distractions, because I believed in that dream. My dream. Gone. They tried to comfort me, said we'd talk about options, maybe community college or taking a gap year to work. But it wasn't about the options. It was about trust. About realizing that when it came down to it, my future meant less to them than Jake's Instagrammable wedding. After that conversation, something inside me broke. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even argue. I just shut down. I went up to my room, closed the door, and sat in silence for hours. Everything felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. The next morning, I emailed NYU's admissions office trying to buy time. I explained that my financial situation had changed, that I was working to secure emergency funding, that I'd do anything not to lose my spot. They were kind, but firm. We can hold your place until the payment deadline, they said. After that, you'll have to defer or reapply next year. I had 2 weeks. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I called extended family, an aunt in Ohio, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. No one could help. My parents offered vague apologies, but never once said they regretted what they did. Instead, they kept talking about how beautiful the wedding had been, how worth it all was. Jake, he didn't even look at me. I guess I should have expected that. At one point, I asked my mom, "Why didn't you at least talk to me before spending the money?" She flinched, then replied quietly, "We didn't want to upset you. Upset me." I was supposed to be at orientation, walking through Washington Square Park, moving into my dorm, decorating it with photos and fairy lights. Instead, I was sitting in my childhood bedroom with packed suitcases and nowhere to go. On the day I was supposed to leave for New York, I put on the NYU hoodie I'd bought months ago, just to remind myself that the dream had been real, that I hadn't imagined it. Then I folded it, stuffed it in a drawer, and went looking for work. The only place hiring with immediate hours was a local diner off the highway. Greasy tables, rude customers' night shifts that ended with my feet screaming. It was humiliating, but I needed the money. The first time someone I knew walked in a girl from high school who barely remembered my name, I felt something sink inside me. She smiled in that pitying way people do when they know you were supposed to be more. "You're working here now. I thought you were going to NYU." I forced a smile and said, "Plans changed." She didn't ask why. She didn't have to. Jake and Brittany returned from their honeymoon in Greece a few weeks later. Their Instagram was filled with sunset selfies, yacht parties, and photos of Brittany lounging in designer swimsuits. My parents showed me the album like it was a family vacation. "Doesn't she look radiant?" my mom gushed. "They're such a beautiful couple." I stared at the photos, trying to remember what it felt like to be proud of my family. That night, I finally confronted Jake. We were alone in the kitchen. He was making a protein shake, acting like nothing had happened. "Did you know they used my college fund for your wedding?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Yeah, Mom mentioned it. That didn't bother you?" He shrugged. "You'll get over it. College isn't everything." I stared at him, disbelief flooding through me. "You've wasted more opportunities than I'll ever get, and they still chose you." He turned, then frowning. "Don't make this a big deal, Em. You can reapply next year. Everyone takes a gap year these days." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the blender at his head, but I didn't. Instead, I walked away. Something had shifted. I realized that no one was coming to save me. Not my parents. Not Jake. Not NYU. If I was going to have a future, I'd have to build it myself. And something else, something darker began to take root. I didn't just want to succeed. I wanted them to watch me succeed. I wanted them to feel the sting of regret every time they saw my face, every time they heard my name. At the diner, I worked double shifts. I saved every tip, skipped every indulgence, lived like a ghost. But when I got home at night, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I studied. Not for a test, not for school. For me. I started creating video lessons, simple at first. How to write a college essay. Breaking down the SAT. How I got into NYU. I uploaded them to YouTube using a fake name. No expectations. Just something to keep my brain alive. Within a month, one of the videos went viral. Then another. Comments poured in. Messages from students who couldn't afford tutors. Parents thanking me for explaining things so clearly. I had found something I hadn't expected: purpose and power. While my parents bragged about Jake's wedding photos, I was building something no one could take from me. They didn't know it yet, but the reckoning was coming. "You've wasted more opportunities than I'll ever get, and they still chose you." He turned, then frowning. "Don't make this a big deal, Em. You can reapply next year. Everyone takes a gap year these days." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the blender at his head. But I didn't. Instead, I walked away. Something had shifted. I realized that no one was coming to save me. Not my parents, not Jake, not NYU. If I was going to have a future, I'd have to build it myself. And something else, something darker began to take root. I didn't just want to succeed. I wanted them to watch me succeed. I wanted them to feel the sting of regret every time they saw my face, every time they heard my name. At the diner, I worked double shifts. I saved every tip, skipped every indulgence, lived like a ghost. But when I got home at night, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I studied. Not for a test, not for school. For me. I started creating video lessons, simple at first. How to write a college essay. Breaking down the SAT. How I got into NYU. I uploaded them to YouTube using a fake name. No expectations, just something to keep my brain alive. Within a month, one of the videos went viral. Then another. Comments poured in. Messages from students who couldn't afford tutors, parents thanking me for explaining things so clearly. I had found something I hadn't expected: purpose and power. While my parents bragged about Jake's wedding photos, I was building something no one could take from me. They didn't know it yet, but the reckoning was coming. The first check I got from YouTube was just under $150. Not much, but more than I expected. It came from ad revenue on a video titled "Why College Admissions Are Broken." It was me sitting on the floor of my bedroom, talking straight into my webcam with tired eyes and no makeup. No filters, no edits, just truth. I didn't even use my real name. The channel was called Scholarside. It wasn't supposed to be big. I didn't plan any of it. I just needed to speak, to let it out. And somehow, the internet listened. Over the next 2 months, my channel grew from 1,000 subscribers to 50,000, then 100,000. I was still working at the diner, still pulling doubles, still coming home reeking of grease and exhaustion. But I'd come home, chug water, and record another video. Sometimes at 2 a.m., whispering into the mic while my parents slept down the hall. I couldn't risk them finding out. They still thought I was taking a break to figure things out. Jake still called me the dramatic one. But something was changing. For the first time, I was changing. People were commenting things like, "Your videos helped my daughter get into college. We couldn't afford a tutor, but you broke it down so clearly. Please don't stop. You're making a difference." I wasn't just rebuilding my future. I was becoming something bigger. Then came the email that changed everything. A nonprofit organization, the Future Bridge Foundation, had found my channel. They worked with underserved students nationwide, helping them access college and mentorship programs. They didn't know my real name, but they wanted to sponsor me. The email read, "We believe in your message. We'd like to fund your continued education and build a scholarship program in your name. Would you be open to a meeting?" I stared at my screen, hands shaking. Me. A scholarship named after me. I created a separate email, responded professionally, and arranged a Zoom meeting. I wore a blazer I'd borrowed from a coworker and did my hair for the first time in weeks. The representative from the foundation, her name was Lila, was warm, smart, and exactly the kind of person I'd always hoped to become. "We believe your story is bigger than a channel," she said, "and if you're willing to share more of it, we can help." I told her everything, well, almost. I left out the names, but I told her the truth about the college fund, the betrayal, the diner. She listened. She didn't flinch. A week later, they offered to pay for me to re-enroll, not just at any school, but back at NYU. And they would cover everything: tuition, housing, books, in full. In exchange, I would continue producing content under their partnership. And once I finished school, I'd work with them for 2 years as an education advocate. It felt like a dream, a real one I'd created with my own hands. But I had one condition. The scholarship they created, I wanted it to be public. I wanted my name, Emma Carter, to be on it, so that anyone who Googled me, especially my parents, would see what I had done. Not out of pride, out of principle. I accepted the offer and began preparing for a new start, a secret one. I didn't tell my parents, not yet. I waited until the acceptance letter arrived in the mail addressed to me with full scholarship listed inside. Then I left it on the kitchen table. The next morning I waited. I made coffee, sat at the counter like nothing was different. Mom came into the kitchen first. Her eyes landed on the letter. She picked it up, scanned it casually, then froze. "Emma," she whispered, "what is this?" Dad came in right behind her. He took the paper from her hands, read it in silence. His brow furrowed, lips tight. Then he looked at me. "You're going back to NYU." I nodded. "Yes, on a full scholarship." There was a long pause, a tension thick enough to slice. "I thought you said you couldn't afford it," Mom said, almost accusatory. "I couldn't," I replied, "until someone who believed in education stepped up. Someone who isn't related to me." The air snapped. Dad looked uncomfortable. "Emma, that's not fair. We did what we thought was best." "No, you did what was easy." I cut in. "You used the money that was meant for my future to buy cake tastings and calligraphy place cards." Jake, of course, chose that moment to stroll in, shirtless, yawning, like a prince returning from battle. "What's all the drama?" he mumbled, grabbing orange juice. I didn't even look at him. Mom turned to me. "Why didn't you tell us you were applying again?" "We could have." "You could have done a lot of things," I interrupted, "but you didn't. And now I don't owe you explanations." Jake finally noticed the letter. He read it over Mom's shoulder, let out a laugh. "Damn full ride. Who'd want to pay for you?" I stood up slowly. Apparently someone who sees value and potential. Unlike my own brother. He rolled his eyes. "You're still bitter about the money. That was months ago. You gotta let it go. Em, let it go." I clenched my fists. My voice was calm, but shaking underneath. "You took everything I worked for, Jake. You didn't even blink. You walked into a dream. Someone else paid for mine. So no, I'm not letting it go. I'm making sure it never happens again." Silence. Mom looked at me with glassy eyes. "Honey, we didn't realize how deeply this hurt you. That's the problem," I said. "You never realized, because you never cared enough to ask." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked out of the kitchen and closed the door behind me. I was done. The next week, I packed my bags again, this time for real. I moved into a tiny studio in Brooklyn, paid for by the foundation. No fairy lights this time. Just a laptop, a ring light, and a vision. School started. And something strange happened. Professors knew my name. Students quoted my videos. Even staff at the university recognized me from the content. One day, I was pulled aside by the Dean of Student Affairs. "We've been following your work," she said. "It's inspired our team to reconsider how we support students with financial challenges." She invited me to speak on a panel, then another. Soon, I was being interviewed by podcasts, websites, even local news. But the moment that floored me came weeks later, when the foundation officially launched the Emma Carter Opportunity Grant. A scholarship, in my name, and the first student to receive it. A girl from Texas who had lost her father, worked nights at a gas station, and wanted to be the first in her family to go to college. Her email to me simply read, "You showed me it was possible. Thank you for not giving up." That night I cried, for the first time in months, not from pain, from pride. And then came the call. My mom. She left a voicemail, voice trembling. "Emma, we saw the article. About the scholarship, about you. Your father and we're proud, and we're sorry. We made a mistake, a big one. Please, can we talk?" I stared at my phone. For a moment, I almost called back, but I didn't. I opened my laptop and started typing instead. Five ways your parents can ruin your future and how to take it back. It wasn't vengeance. It was clarity. I wasn't part of their narrative anymore. I was writing my own. It started with a feature in the Chronicle of Higher Education. The article titled "The Girl Who Turned Betrayal into a Scholarship Movement" painted a full picture: my lost college fund, the wedding, the night shifts, and the viral channel that followed. It didn't name names, but anyone from my hometown could read between the lines. Especially when they saw the headline of the companion video on my channel. My family spent my future on a wedding, so I built my own. Within hours, the video had over 1 million views. My DMs flooded with stories from other students, those who'd been sacrificed for a sibling, silenced by favoritism, or quietly erased by their families. This wasn't just my story, it was everyone's. And the twist, the true satisfying twist. My parents' phone started ringing. Turns out people talk in small towns. Turns out when your daughter becomes a national story for being wronged by her own family, everyone notices. Church members, neighbors, old friends. Mom texted me first. "Emma, people are asking questions. We look like monsters. Please take the video down." I didn't respond. A day later, Dad emailed a long-winded apology mixed with excuses. Said they never thought it would explode like this. That line stayed with me. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry people found out. The real karma wasn't just that I made it without them. It was that I did it better than they ever imagined. And now the world knew. Jake, of course, took a different route. He posted a story on Instagram clearly about me. Some people just love playing the victim. Get over it. I screenshotted it. Didn't say a word. Just added it to my next video. Why narcissists hate accountability. The irony, that video doubled the reach of the last one. But the moment that sealed it, I got an email from NYU's media department. They wanted to feature me in a campaign called Redefining Success. The video would premiere at the university's donor gala, an elite event attended by alumni philanthropists and board members. They offered to fly me and one guest to the event, dress included. I said yes, but I didn't invite my parents. I invited Lila, the woman from the foundation, who believed in me from day one. She helped me pick the dress, a sleek navy gown with sharp shoulders and a high slit. It wasn't flashy. It was powerful. When I stepped into that ballroom, heads turned. The video played to a silent room, my story, my words, my voice. The crowd watched as I went from waitress to advocate. When the lights came back on, they stood and clapped. Some even cried. I wasn't just the girl who got her tuition stolen. I was a symbol. And then came the real twist. One of the NYU board members approached me after the screening. She'd been deeply moved, especially by how I used my platform to uplift other students. She was also, it turned out, the CEO of a major publishing company. "You ever thought about writing a book?" she asked. I blinked. Yes, but I wouldn't know where to start. She smiled. That's what editors are for. Within 2 months, I signed a deal to publish Scholar Side Reclaiming the Future They Stole. And on the dedication page, I wrote to everyone who was told no by the people who should have said yes. This is for you. A week before the book announcement, my parents showed up. Yes, showed up. At my apartment, unannounced. I opened the door stunned. They looked older, smaller. Not in size, but in spirit. Mom held out a paper, an old photo of me in middle school, holding a future NYU student sign I'd drawn with crayon. "We found this," she said. Her voice broke. "We realized how long you dreamed of this." Dad stepped forward. "We failed you, Emma. We see that now. And if there's any way to fix," I held up a hand. "I appreciate the gesture," I said calmly. "But I'm not here to help you feel better about what you did. I'm not interested in rewriting history so we can all smile at holidays." Mom wiped her eyes. "We're proud of you." I nodded. "I know. But I didn't do this for your pride. I did it in spite of your failure." They looked devastated. But I wasn't cruel. I wasn't angry anymore. I had outgrown their approval. And that was the real revenge. The day I walked back onto NYU's campus, I didn't feel like the same girl who'd once stood at the gates with wide eyes and trembling hands. I wasn't chasing approval anymore. I wasn't trying to prove I was worthy of the dream. I had earned my place not just at the university, but in the world. As I sat in my first lecture of the semester, the professor nodded in my direction. "Glad to have you back, Emma." This time, there were no tears, no regret, just quiet pride. After class, I walked through the quad. Students smiled at me, not because I was famous, but because I was familiar. I had become part of something bigger. I stopped by the bulletin board outside the student center. A new flyer was pinned at the top. "Emma Carter, Opportunity, Grant Now, Accepting Applications." I stood there for a moment, reading it. The words didn't just represent funding. They represented vindication. Everything they thought they took from me, my education, my dignity, my voice, I had reclaimed. Only now, I wasn't alone. I was paving the way for others. That night, I got one final message from my mother. "We're proud of the woman you've become, even if we didn't help you get there." I typed back slowly, then hit send. "I don't study at the school of your approval anymore. I study at the school of my own values." And with that, I shut my phone off, stepped into the library, and got back to work.